I want somebody that'll help bring something out of me that I don't know is there. That's the kind of people I want around. And you have to evaluate that, and not to be selfish, but I'm a firm believer that if I'm the smartest one all the time in my group,
Yeah.
I'm never going to get smarter, right?
hmm
If I want to be wealthy, I need to find out how people that are wealthy got wealthy, and I'm not going
Right.
to do that if I'm never around them. So you got to be mindful of your circle and those that are around you, those that can help you get to where you're going. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Kingdom Connections. I'm Alan, here with Mr. Tyler Bowles. How are you today, Tyler?
I'm doing excellent. How are you, sir?
I'm awesome, man. Awesome. Just enjoying this beautiful weather. So we've been talking about something that comes up a lot, and it's talking about the company you keep today. So you want to start on that, Tyler?
We can, sure.
Just
Um,
kind of go from there, and just the pros, the cons, all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, I think when it comes to talking about the company you keep, I think a lot of it also, just to spin it a little bit, it's not necessarily, it is the company, but it's also the environment, because the environment can also be conducive to different things. Like, I know the scripture talks plenty about not putting yourself in those situations to where you can fall. Even Jesus said, if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out.
Right.
So it's important to not only think about in the sense of the company that you keep, but it's also the environment in which the company is, because the environment can change the company.
Wow.
So, prime example for me, at least, is if all you're hanging around are people that goes clubbing and goes to bars, that's going to be conducive of the type of people that you're going to hang around.
Right.
Typically, not always, but typically, a lot of times your people that like to bar hop and club and all of that are not going to be the most wise influences that you would need to gravitate towards. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and then it also, I heard a saying one time that says, if you show me your friends, I'll show you your future.
Ooh.
And if I can look at who you're hanging around with long enough, I can tell what kind of person you're going to be just based on the people that they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just food for thought there, just taking a self-evaluation and a self-reflection, the people that you have around you, if somebody could tell the future that you were going to have based on the people that you're hanging around, what kind of future would you have?
Mm.
And I have to do self-evaluations all the time, because not all relationships that you're in are healthy relationships.
Right. Right. And I think that, man, that was good there. And the environment is a big issue. And, you're going to find different people in different circumstances. Absolutely. And, the Bible clearly tells us not, that we're in this world, but we're not of this world.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm not saying that we can't be friendly to people and we can't spend time with people that need us, because that's what we're here for. But at the same time, I think that our close circle, especially, we need to start with and start evaluating each person, and like, hey, not necessarily putting them on blast, but like just, hey, how's it helping me in growing? Are they helping me grow? Are they keeping me back? If I go in that environment and I've had a great day and I'm smiling and I'm happy, do I leave there depressed and upset? And
Right.
So, and I'm telling you, the company you keep can really do that to you. Just prime example, I'll just give a little testimony, I guess. But, I had a job that I absolutely loved for years. And I went to work, I did my thing, and I went home, and, everything was peachy. Well, I started hanging out around the water cooler, so to speak, and hearing a lot of negative. And within a 6-month period, I think I went from loving my job to absolutely hating and dreading going to work. And nothing changed but the people I hung out with. So I really think that can, that can have an effect on you, just like you going in work with a smile on your face can have an effect on somebody having a bad day. It can go the opposite way too.
Yeah. Yep. You're absolutely right. And there's one scripture that comes to mind for me. You were talking about as far as, and obviously we're not talking about being selfish in the way that you build your relationships, but at the same time, normally there needs to be give and take on both sides. Like if all you do is give and give and give, and then nobody else gives in return, that in turn is going to drain you.
Yeah.
And it's going to zap and just destroy any bit of morale that you had. And in Proverbs, it's 30 and 15. I think it's almost kind of comical just how just blunt this is. It says the leech has two suckers that cry out more, more. There are three things that are never satisfied. No, four that never say enough. The grave, the barren womb, the thirsty desert, and the blazing fire.
Wow.
The grave. You never really think about sometimes the decisions you make can have that much of an eternal effect.
Yeah.
One bad decision, and not to get too on the topic of premature death, but it absolutely can happen.
Yeah.
You can do things contrary to what God wills for you, and you can destroy something by lunchtime that God has placed into you and that you have taken the time to build over the course of your life. You can destroy it in a matter of minutes.
Right.
And the people that you keep around you can do the very same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just like with that scripture, the scripture referred to them as leeches, more, 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 constantly saying never enough. It's never enough. And that in turn is going to make you feel like you're never enough. You're never enough because they just keep taking and they keep taking and they never give anything back in return.
Right.
And I can tell you that I've had people in my life that's done that to me.
Right.
And it's something, it's almost like, you ever looked at yourself in the mirror one time and you're just like, how did this happen? I know at least for me, I'm real bad for like, I'll drop 40 pounds and then I'll gain 35. And it's like, and it took 6 months to take the 40 pounds off. Mm-hmm. And you don't realize that it's coming back until there's just like a certain way that you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, what happened?
Right.
That's just, at least for me, maybe not everybody else can associate or have any sort of relation with that, but at least for me. And I do that even sometimes with relationships that I have with people. Mm-hmm. Like, how did we get to this place? At first, it seemed fine. Mm-hmm. But if you don't take constant inventory, it can get out of hand.
Right.
And just being blunt about it, I've had to cut people out of my life.
Right.
Just because it wasn't healthy. And sometimes it hurts and it can be, it's almost like a pruning process. Yeah. It's not always going to feel good. And people aren't always going to agree with the decisions you make. But when it's made with the right intentionality, I know you speak about that a lot, and that's something that's impacted me ever since you preached about it. When you do something with the right intentions and with Holy Spirit filled and inspired intentions, it always works out for your good. People aren't always going to understand it. People aren't always going to believe that you're doing it for the right reasons, but sometimes things are just not going to make sense to other people, and you've got to do what's best for you.
Right. Well, and you don't have to do it rude. You just be more mindful of the time that you spend with those that are around you. You're absolutely right. I'm a dreamer. I've said that many times, and I've had many dreams, and to be honest, some of them were just my ambitions. It wasn't really what God wanted, but I was bad about just blaring that everywhere, telling everybody that I ran into and talking about my dreams. And where did that get Joseph?
Right. In the pit.
It wasn't that the dream was bad. It was who he was talking to. There was nobody in that group saying, I believe you can. I believe you can do that. I believe God can do that for you. No, they all was like, that ain't going to happen. That ain't going to happen. And so he was just telling them, and I really believe that was the whole process of that whole story. Go back and read it if you haven't, but just that whole process was getting him to a point that, hey, you got to be careful with who you confide in. And I want somebody that'll help bring something out of me that I don't know is there. That's the kind of people I want around. And you have to evaluate that, and not to be selfish. But I'm a firm believer that if I'm if I'm the smartest one all the time in my group,
Yeah.
I'm never going to get smarter, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I want to be wealthy, I need to find out how people that are wealthy got wealthy, and I'm not going
Right.
to do that if I'm never around them. So you got to be mindful of your circle and those that are around you, those that can help you get to where you're going, and those that are going to drag you down and like, nah, you're just going to be with one of us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to start cutting them out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was just funny that you're talking about like being the smartest person in your friend group, and if you want to be wealthy, you put yourself with wealthy people. There is I'll just name drop him. Why not? Just because I follow his teachings. People love him, people hate him because he's super extreme on a lot of stuff. But Dave Ramsey is one of the key people that I've heard talk about that, because he's always like, you ever notice that if you're ever trying to get out of debt and you're talking to your friends who are still immensely in debt, and you tell them the process of what you're doing to get yourself out of debt, they're always like, oh, that's stupid. That's not a life to live. That's not any way to be. All you're going to do is just work and work and work all the time. But when they have mountains of debt and have no interest in trying to do anything to better themselves, of course, they're going to talk down to you because they want to make themselves look better in your eyes.
Right.
It's like a psychological thing. They don't want anybody to be better than them.
Yeah.
And if that's the circle that you're around, unfortunately, that's going to be contagious, and that's going to rub off on you.
Right.
But if you flip that and go, I'm going to put myself in front of the people and with the people that I want to be most like. Not necessarily saying that you want to be them, but there are certain aspects about people that are just commendable traits.
Right.
Some people are geniuses. Some people are great at running businesses. How do they run a business? I don't know. Go talk to them. Go be with them. You can learn things from them. There are going to be some things that you might have to change, and you have to be willing to do that. But if you were always the person, and it's not a knock on anybody who's got a lot of wisdom, it's an amazing thing, but you should always be desiring to grow.
Right.
And if you're always the person that people are coming to, but then you're never going to anybody to gain anything from, to get any sort of wisdom, any sort of knowledge on, that can be an issue too.
Right.
Because it's like, you ever heard, there was an experiment done talking about like a shark.
Mm-hmm.
A shark cannot outgrow its boundaries.
Right.
That's why if you get a shark and put him in a fish tank, he's never going to go outside that fish tank. But if you put him in the ocean, you know, he can be so much bigger. I mean, we're talking about like 20, 30 feet. Whereas if you keep him confined in a fish tank, he might be like 1.5 feet.
Oh yeah.
It's all about the environment and the boundaries that you're setting yourself in.
Right.
And if the people that you are around are constantly putting you in a boundary, putting you in a place to where you feel like you can't learn, you can't be, you can't absorb anything, you should just stay as you are. I'll be honest with you, it's not the company that I want to be around.
Right.
If I'm trying to better myself and somebody else is trying to keep me from improving myself, that's a difficult conversation that you're going to have with that individual, because, and sometimes I may not do it intentionally, but it comes across that way. And hopefully it's not just a personality trait. If it's a personality trait, that's a whole nother and you just need to run, get out of there.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, I mean, it's just, to me, how is your circle? Are they helping you? Are they pushing you? Are they challenging you?
Right.
Or are they just using a term from this generation? Are they just gaslighting you?
Right.
Are they just keeping you confined in this bubble?
Right.
You know.
Absolutely. And you know, again, we're not. I want to make it clear that I'm not saying that you build your relationships on what can people do for me. I think, you know, that's just a crazy idea, I think, because I mean, there's people in my life that minister to me and I minister to them. It's kind of an equal thing. But one thing they don't do is, even if they don't understand what I say, they don't down me or try to pull me down or try to stomp on that dream. If anything, they're like, hey man, if your heart's there, you know, go for it. Even though they don't have it. You know, they don't have it either. But, you know, it is very important. It is very important to to choose wisely. Who is, and there's different levels. There's people I hang out with on a daily basis,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just be blunt and honest that I probably wouldn't sit down and eat with. Now, please don't throw rocks. I know I say that a lot. Seems like I'm saying that a lot anyway. But, what I mean by that is that, man, I can be friendly with them. They're good people. But I also know that they're not going the direction I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
And I want, as far as I got to be a good manager of my time. And so I want to spend more time with those people that'll help me get to where I'm going.
Yeah.
And again, not a handout. I'm just talking about encouragement, praying, you know what I mean? And so I think that it's definitely a give and take. Any relationship is, but at the same time, if they're taking more than they're giving and you're feeling exhausted every time that you spend an hour with them,
yep,
it's time to reevaluate. And it's kind of like here, if I'm on cloud 9, we've had a great service Sunday morning and I'm feeling good. And then I go out the door and I'm not going to hang around somebody that's talking bad about anybody in the church or talking bad about the church, because that just brings me right back down.
Yep. It absolutely does. Mm-hmm. Well, and you were talking about, and we're just reiterating, we're not saying get in a situation in a friendship where all your mindset is what can they do for me? Because in turn, you then turn into that leech
Right.
that Proverbs is talking about.
Right.
But real quick, we're going to take a commercial break. We'll see you in about 60 seconds. Stay tuned. So I know we have a lot of things going on at House of Hope. That being said, I understand that when you have a lot of things going on, things can be very hectic and confusing, and it makes it hard to plan a schedule around it. But thankfully, we have some tools to help you out. Let me tell you about one of them. One of the most useful resources we have is our church newsletter. If you're listening to this and you have no idea how to get signed up for the newsletter, give me just a few more seconds and let me explain how to get signed up. All you have to do is go to hohwc.org. Again, that is hohwc.org. When you get to the homepage of our website, there is a Contact Us option at the bottom of the screen if you're on a smartphone. That'll give you the option to send us an email. All you have to do is give us your email address and your name. In the body of the email, just simply tell us that you would like to be signed up for the church newsletter. What this does in return is you will get a newsletter at the start of every month with everything going on in that month, all at your fingertips, all ready to go so you can plan your schedule accordingly. I hope this helps you. We would love to see you and connect with you. God bless.
Hey guys, welcome back to Kingdom Connections. Me and Brother Tyler just been talking about the company we keep. But before we go any further, just want to ask that all of you just please comment on these videos. We've heard so much feedback from all of you, and we would love to hear hear what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, or what we can improve on, or whatever. And like and share it for sure. We want to get this out there. If it's helped you, maybe it'll help somebody else. So, but back to what we were talking about, the company you keep. Again, we want to reiterate, guys, that we're not saying that every relationship that you have is take. You definitely have to give too, and there's going to be those that come in your life that do that. But we're just talking about sometimes you get these leeches that just, they you come encounter with some people that just don't want to get any better. And if you're wanting to get better, sometimes you have to make some changes.
Yep. Yeah. And when you think about just, I'm trying to figure out a way to word this so that it doesn't sound like I'm coming across as harsh or abrasive, but I don't really know how to be other than blunt sometimes. I'm just going to just say it like this. It will let the chips fall where they may, so to speak. But when it comes to evaluating your friendships, your relationships, I would even take it even down to a smaller level to your conversations. Mm-hmm. You have to think in the realms of, is this going to hurt me or is it going to help me? Mm-hmm. And sometimes the things that help can also hurt. It's part of the pruning process. It's part of building and growing. But if all they're doing and all these conversations you're having and all the people that you're around, if all they're doing is just being negative and they're not doing anything to help you grow and they're not growing themselves, that's the thing about it too. If the people that you were connected to are also not interested in growing, you probably need to find a different circle.
Right.
Because it goes back to the Shark Tank analogy. If they are confining themselves in that box, if they're confining themselves in that bubble, they're not going to grow. And if they're not going to grow, they're not going to want you to grow because they want you to stay in the same environment.
Right.
And you just have to make that decision. If you were the one that's doing the inventorying, if you're the one doing the reflections and the evaluations, and you're like, you know what, this isn't as it should be, you just have to make that decision. You go to your prayer closet first and see what the Lord would have you to do, because sometimes the Lord will use these things as witness opportunities, but He also doesn't want us to be a doormat.
Absolutely.
And so I would urge you, go to Him first. But even Jesus loved people at a distance.
Yeah.
He would do miracles. He fed 5,000, but then as soon as He fed the 5,000, what happens? He went away. He always had His disciples, and even not all of His disciples were with Him all the time.
Yeah.
Normally there was 2 or 3.
Right.
That there's just certain people that you keep in your circle.
Right.
And Jesus knew, and I think it was a representation for us, that sometimes you have to get away from the noise. You have to get away from the crowds. You have to get away from the people that all they want to do is take and take and take. While, yes, people followed Jesus because of His ministry, a lot of people, let's just be honest, and Scripture doesn't just outright say this, but you can see it in the parables and in the stories and the things that He did. A lot of people followed Him just because He worked miracles.
Right.
That's why the Pharisees hated Him so bad.
Yeah.
He was professing to be the Son of God, but then He was also doing all these works.
Right.
And that's why even the Pharisees, whenever they tried Him, they said he's doing these things. He's casting out devils with the works of devils. He's trying to flip it. And they followed Him just because of what He could do.
Right.
It wasn't, let's see who this man Jesus really is. It wasn't, let's see what He's all about. Let's just see what He does. And there's been multiple instances where the Pharisees would even try to hem Him up over that, because He would do things on the Sabbath. And they're like, you can't do any works on the Sabbath. And it's just, Jesus would separate Himself. He would address the issue, but then He would separate Himself, and He would separate Himself with His disciples. Right. He would go away to pray. He would only have 2 or 3 people with Him there. And to me, it gives us a model of just saying, hey, every now and then you've got to get with the people. Like we've all got that handful of friends that we're just like, come hell or high water, they're going to be there.
Right.
And sometimes you just got to get with those people, and you just got to lock arms with those people. And sometimes you just got to talk about things. Sometimes there's a release that happens. That's why in therapy, that's the whole thing of getting you to talk about your issues. There is a therapeutic effect.
Right.
And if you can't talk to people without them going, man, that's stupid. Why do you feel that? If you can't talk to people about things that you're struggling with,
right,
that's a problem.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Jesus, when He caught the disciples sleeping, He got angry.
Right.
He was like, could you not just simply, for 1 hour, that's all I'm asking, just for 1 hour.
Right.
He didn't talk to anybody else like that.
Yeah.
Other than people that He needed to rebuke when He rebuked the Pharisees and that kind of thing. Right. But He would do miracles for people, and He would open blinded eyes, and he would cleanse the lepers, and He would go about His way. But then when He got with His clique of people, He was able to be Himself.
Right.
And you got to find the people that will allow you to be yourself and allow you to grow.
Right.
Jesus was also helping the disciples grow. So you got to find that delicate balance of, are they helping me, and am I doing something to benefit them?
Right.
Because while Jesus was helping develop the disciples, what happened as Jesus completed His ministry on the earth? The disciples then went and continued the ministry.
Right.
So they were still having that part of the relationship where there was give and take on both sides. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it just, I love that analogy, but yeah, Jesus himself. I mean, Jesus didn't change whether he was in front of the multitude or he was on the mountain praying, but he did change his circle.
Yeah.
And even when he spoke to the disciples, he told them, he said, I have to speak to the others in parables because they're not there yet, but you're there. You know me. And so he spoke to them even differently. And so, again, I'm not saying you cannot have relationships. It's just that who you let in, be careful who you let in.
Yeah.
In other words, especially into those deep things. And there's moments that me and my wife share in conversation that I would never tell anybody else. That's that deep part of me. Yeah. She knows me on a level nobody else knows me. And it's the same way with our friends. I mean, we just got to be careful. I'm not going to go and talk about my marital stuff and all that things to coworkers because I need to talk to the one that knows me best.
Yep.
So we got to be careful what we allow into certain aspects of our lives and what we do. Not that we change, but maybe what we say changes, right? So, with that being said, I mean, again, I'm not saying go home and put a grade card on everybody but I mean, if you leave somebody's company and you feel miserable, you kind of need to rethink how much time you're spending in that situation, right?
Right.
So,
well, we have just a few more minutes for any closing comments. We're at about 26-ish minutes right now. So just closing comments from me is always make sure, and I'm not saying you got to do it every time you talk to somebody, but every now and then just do a reflection. If you're in a good mood and you go to talk to somebody and after you spend about an hour with them, you're down in the mully grubs again, probably need to evaluate that.
Right.
If you're trying to grow, if you're trying to learn, if you're trying to better yourself, and people are trying to talk down to you because you're trying to learn, you're trying to grow, and you're trying to better yourself.
Right.
You need to reevaluate, rethink that conversation, rethink that relationship. That there are some things that need to change.
Right.
And on the flip side of that, when you get with the people who want to grow, when you get with the people who want to learn as you're learning, and they want to develop and they want to better themselves, it is contagious. And there's always, that's why like accountability is such a powerful thing,
right.
Because when you got people that are in like minds and you're trying to accomplish the same goal, it's almost just uncalculable effect that it'll have, because when you have two people that are mission minded and goal oriented,
right,
things happen.
Right. And no two people are going to be identical. But with that being said, again, those that'll push and a lot of people, I think, avoid those relationships because of the accountability. It's not because they don't want them. It's because, oh no, now I got somebody. If I don't get up and go to the gym, they're calling me. What's wrong? You need to get to the gym. You ain't going to reach your goal sitting at home on the couch eating potato chips, And I'm just using that as an analogy. But it's the same way with everything, whether it's your mission work, whether it's what God's called you to do, whether it's just going out with the church and witnessing or whatever it is that's on your heart. You need somebody that'll help push you along. I know I do. I want somebody in the room that'll challenge me.
Yep.
So that's kind of where I'm at. And we could go on. I mean, there's so many layers to this, but the biggest thing is to take away, I think, is just be mindful of the company. Again, doesn't mean that you have to shut everybody out of your life, but be mindful of the company that you keep.
Well, guys, we appreciate it. Please comment, like, share, comment if you're on YouTube, if you're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, those kinds of things.
Please.
Yes, please share it. We are looking at making some sort of, I'm doing some brainstorming on some things to give you guys an avenue as well for those of you who are listening on, like I said, podcasting platforms where there's not an ability to comment. I'm brainstorming on some ideas, so hopefully we'll have some things coming in the future, but we hope you enjoyed. We appreciate the feedback and every bit of support and input that you can give. We love you guys. We appreciate you. God bless. Hey guys, real quick before I let you go, this is Worship Pastor Tyler Bowles, and I'm also one of the podcast hosts here. I just want to take a minute to invite you to our services if you're in the Lexington, North Carolina area and you don't already have a home church. We have services on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. and Wednesday night at 7 p.m. We have programs in place for all ages, so please bring your family, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, have them bring their kids. We would love to get to meet you and connect with all of you and partner with you and believe with you for the things that you are believing God for. Because something very powerful happens whenever we gather together in one mind with one accord, because the Bible says then a suddenly happens. And I just want to agree with you and bind together with you for the suddenly moments, for those breakthroughs you may need. So if you were in the Lexington, North Carolina area and you don't already have a home church, the address is 117 Harris Road, Lexington, North Carolina, 27292. Again, that is 117 Harris Road, Lexington, North Carolina, 27292. We would love to see you. We would love to see your family. We would love to get to know you. We love you. We appreciate you. We are praying for you. God bless.